This is What's Up the Sports Podcast. Today is Monday, the 18th of September. I'm Randy Kure, and we are live via Twitter Spaces. You could also find What's Up the Sports Podcast on several podcasting platforms as well as YouTube. It is roundtable time, and I'm guessing by saying the word September in today's date, it's music to our to the ears of the panelists for tonight's roundtable. We are going to go heavy with Major League Baseball and the playoff race involving the major leagues. Really excited to introduce tonight's roundtable. Matt Siriani gave a sparkling rookie roundtable performance back in June. I'm certainly not expecting a sophomore slump. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. I've always wanted to come back on the show ever since my debut, and obviously, Randy, I appreciate you giving me the invite. And Lily, Jake, Colorcast Community guys, great to be with you guys, and let's have some fun.
And Matt took the words right out of my mouth. The next two panelists are from the now defunct Apple Apple Colorcast app. You can hear him on Twitter as he's talking sports with Jake. Give him a follow at Jake Cardinale 6. He is Jake Cardinale. Jake, how are you?
I'm very, very good, RC. Thank you so much for the plug. That is me. Yeah, I've been trying to connect with Randy for a while now. I'm very happy to be here. And yes, that is me on Twitter. And yes, I do my show. I go live on Twitter Space and it's on YouTube as well.
We've had a couple of good conversations, you and I, Jake.
We have. We certainly have. We certainly have.
No, definitely looking forward to this evening. And repping the U.S. Midwest as a podcaster, broadcaster, and is all things Brew Crew. Catch her sports thoughts at Lily June Shu. Shu is spelled SCHU. Lily Schumacher is here. Lily, the pleasure is all mine. How's it going?
I'm doing great. You can also catch me. I have another podcast called Fudge and Meat. That is another one of my mainstays. That is Packers and Brewers, which especially right now focusing on Packers, but not going to find me as regularly, I think, as some of these other guys. But, every once in a while, you'll be able to catch my thoughts, hear me there. But it's absolutely a pleasure to be here and doing this with you guys.
Now, Lily, forgive my ignorance, but, for a guy like myself who born, raised, and living in Toronto, Canada, I mean, the Cheesehead is also visible at Lambeau Field. And can the same be said for, say, Pfizer Forum and Miller Park? I mean, is it a Packers thing, the Cheesehead, or is it a Milwaukee/Wisconsin thing?
It's mostly a Packers thing, but it has kind of extended into Wisconsin culture as a whole. It kind of does represent, just a Wisconsinite. I think particularly it's always going to be a Packers fan type of thing. But this season for the Brewers, not recently, they gave it up, I think, a month ago but after every home run, they would put the Cheesehead on the player who had hit the home run. So it has kind of extended there. I think sometimes you'll see fans wearing it. I'd say more likely at a Brewers game than a Bucks game, but Packers game, you can, for sure there's cheese heads, cheese cowboy hats, cheese bras, etc. So there's a lot of different things that people will wear.
Cheese bras. That's interesting. Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, it exists.
Yeah, and especially at Lambeau Field. I mean, that must be quite uncomfortable to wear. But I mean, what I was going to say was that I do have a contact who lives in Madison, and he did say that he was going to send me a Cheesehead. That was 2 years ago, and now I've kind of lost faith. So, Steve, if you're out there, you're not on my good books. But to the three of you, thank you so much for joining me. And I'd love to start things off because the World Cup of Basketball finished about a couple weeks ago, and Germany has claimed their first men's basketball World Cup, defeating Serbia. My home and native land of Canada won hardware at this tournament for the first time ever. They are going to the Olympics for the first time since 2000 at the expense of the United States, who haven't medaled since 2014, but reinforcements appear to be on the way. I mean, Matt, I'd love to ask you if you followed the Men's World Cup. And are you a fan of international basketball in general?
So it's funny you bring this up. I actually did watch a majority of the World Cup. I watched the exhibition play, I watched the round robin play, and then when we got to the knockout stage, I did follow a lot of what the U.S. was doing. And for the most part, the U.S. played really well. I think Austin Reeves and did his part. I also liked the way the defense played. But as far as international play goes, I like international play. Two fewer minutes left every quarter. The defense, there's more intense defensive play. And ultimately, I just think that it's more interesting, more compelling. I remember getting into this when I first started watching the Olympics back in 2016. And I just think there's more hustle with 40 minutes than 48 minutes. So that's why I find compelling. But as far as the U.S. run goes, yes. Germany, I don't know where they got the steam to beat the U.S. from, but the U.S. looked so good for most of their run and just came short of a comeback against Germany. And, Canada, we were discussing this before we went on. I didn't know a few people that were from Canada that play in the NBA. So that was kind of compelling to know. But again, it was a great tournament and congrats to Germany.
Yeah, no, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, we were talking about, Hamilton Zone, which is about 20 minutes west of where I currently live in Milton, Ontario, which is about 45 minutes west of Toronto. And with the likes of Jamal Murray and Ben Mathurin, and I mean, there's definitely quite a bit of talent on the Canadian side. And obviously, Jake, it was a massive accomplishment for my country to beat the United States. That being said, the creme de la crop of the red, white, and blue were not at this World Cup. After the bronze medal match, USA finished in fourth, and there was a reported plea from NBA legend LeBron James to gather the troops for the Paris Olympics. I mean, don't you think that there should be an importance to the World Cup, however, that everybody is so geared up for the Olympics, but not a lot of people are interested in this FIBA World Cup?
Yeah, I'll put it this way. A lot of people were very surprised that the U.S. Did not medal at the World Cup. People were like, what happened? I don't know why people are that surprised. The U.S. team, to me, hasn't impressed me at the World Cup in a long time. The last World Cup team that I even thought had a shot at even the bronze was probably 2014. Every year, they send out this misfit club. I mean, Josh Hart was on the team. I love Josh Hart. He fits the Knicks perfectly, but he doesn't even start on his own team. There was guys on that team that don't start for their own team. And then the Olympics comes around, and they send the Avengers. They send LeBron. They send Curry. They send Durant. They send Devin Booker. Kobe Bryant when he was still playing. And they demolish everybody. And they're like, what happened? Just look at the talent. For the FIBA team, they send it's almost like saying the minor league team. Nothing else. Nothing against them. Like, I love Jalen Brunson. He's great. And Anthony Edwards, all these guys are great. But compared to the Avengers team that they sent for them with LeBron James and, back in the day, they would sing obviously Carmelo Anthony, all those guys. And now it's obviously Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry. People need to stop being so surprised. And why, they should be more interested in the World Cup. I just think that the World Cup comes around more often than the Olympics. These guys play all year round. They train all year round. So it's just a lot. And because the Olympics is only once every 4 years, or I guess the summer winter, they all play every 2 years. I just think the Olympics is more well known for whatever reason. I just think that's what it is. But also people need to stop being surprised that the U.S. team is not performing as well in the FIBA as they are in the Olympics. The team that they send to the Olympics is just miles better.
Well, and also the fact that this tournament was in Japan, Philippines, and Indonesia. I mean, it's not really a stone's throw away from here in North America. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, the last World Cup was in China. So, Lily, I think that where I'd like to, where I see a comparison between basketball and baseball is that, especially with basketball as well as hockey, I mean, the Olympics just seem to be so much more alluring for NBA players, NHL players. And, 2007, I guess, was the first iteration of the international baseball with the World Baseball Classic.
Mhm.
Really great dynamic, and I think it's a really great program, but I mean, it really hasn't captured steam yet. However, that being said, I mean, I think we were all enthralled with USA Japan in the final game, and of course the final at bat between Otani and Mike Trout.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, in with regards to international baseball, do you think that more money and resources should go into the World Baseball Classic? Do they have something there, or is
Oh
there?
yeah.
Yeah, because so you do think so? Because I was wondering if they should halt the season like they do in hockey and put resources and their star talent towards the Olympics.
I mean, I think it's something to really be considered. I would say this is not the first year that World Baseball Classic really kind of picked up some major steam, but I think more than ever this year really I would say it seemed to really capture a lot of people and had a lot of people enthralled. And I found myself, watching not every single game, but even ones that I would have never found myself interested in, like I guess random matchups. I really started getting into it and liked seeing this sort of way of finding global talent. And I think something that also helped with that is that you do have some of these major stars from like MLB going and playing for, some of them it is their home country, but then you have a few of them where, like, for example, I know Team Italy had a lot of kind of, random MLB guys who had
Mhm.
some sort of like Italian heritage. Same with like Team UK, all these different teams where it's not necessarily all about that, but was something that was fun about it is it seemed like everybody really enjoyed representing a country and being part of that. Even to look at like Lars Nootbaar representing Japan and that becoming a major thing, him becoming a star there. I think we really saw the benefits of it. And part of that is then that you have all the players talking about it themselves and saying, hey, I really enjoyed it. We really found this to be a really great experience. Even to like Trey Turner obviously had a really big outing in the World Baseball Classic and had a really great classic itself. And even him, kind of falling off after the fact and not having a great start with the Phillies, he still was there saying, basically to the effect of, I would do it again. Like, I don't think it really inhibited my performance. I don't think it had to relate to anything like that. Maybe it does suck to all of a sudden have something like that where the world sees just how good you are. But overall, it seemed like everybody had so many positive things to say. It increases the risk of injury, things like that. But I think it's a huge benefit for sports when you have the opportunity for countries to be represented on such a grand stage. All the hats I still see people wearing from so many different countries, not even to one that they necessarily have any connection to, correlation to. I thought about getting, I forget which ones. I almost got a Team Canada hat. I have no connection to
Bless you,
Canada.
bless
Yeah,
you.
I'm not even trying to like do that there, do be like that. But I was like, oh, this is sick. I almost got a Netherlands hat. Like, I don't know. There's so many things there that I think it just really helps out sports when you do have something on a grand stage. But I think we're still at the point where the Olympics are always going to kind of garner more national interest because it is, or international interest and national, because it's that collecting everybody from every sport. Everybody's on that stage where, other than I'd say the like FIFA World Cup, where the other sports just aren't there yet. But it doesn't mean that there shouldn't be money put into it, time put into it, and put any like, invest in it in some way.
So, what is the problem with the World Baseball Classic? I mean, like I, for one, thought, and obviously I don't have a medical background, but I was thinking that maybe the World Baseball Classic would be better in after the World Series. Relatively speaking, of course, the players who haven't played since early October, maybe they're off for a little while.
Yeah.
But rather than a month off, now they're, I mean, sure, they do train all year round, but if you were to have it, say, towards the end of the, like in November and so on, like our players still raring to go. That being said, I always keep hearing about injuries. Is it really so much just the pitchers that players are that baseball is worried about? Because it seems that an injury for a pitcher, they're going to be on the shelf for a while.
Yeah, I'll start because the main injury at this year's World Baseball Classic was Edwin Diaz. Of course, I'm a Mets fan, so that was a tough loss. That was, I think,
Yeah.
one of the big reasons the Mets underperformed, besides a bunch of other reasons. But that's a different story for a different day. I think the overall tournament is phenomenal. It's like the overall tournament that was some of the best baseball I've ever watched. The games were phenomenal. There's players that have come out and said they would rather win a World Baseball Classic than a World Series.
Mhm.
Players have said that. But I think the timing is off because every single game is basically playoff baseball. So, and I don't see how any pitcher, I don't care how good you are, is ready to get basically out, so you would be getting in October, in March. Like, so the timing to me is really, really bad. So now you think, all right, where do we put it? You can't put it in June because you can't take off during the season. The season's too long. It's not like hockey, which is only 82 games, opposed to 162. And I still don't think the NHL should do. I think it's very stupid of them. But I also think that like the end of November is good. The one issue is that the NFL is going on at the same time,
Right.
and just because of how many because of how much ratings they get, I understand that. But I think the World Baseball Classic, it's big enough where I think it can compete with the NFL. I know there's very few leagues and tournaments that can compete with the NFL, even somewhat. And I think the World Baseball Classic is one of them. So they should really put it at the end of November, so even the players that play in the World Series have a month or so off. And the players that didn't make the playoffs have they might be a little rusty, maybe have like practice games or maybe something like that for a week to get their feet back under them, and they'll have enough time before the spring training starts to where they won't risk injury. So I really think they should put it at like maybe end of November, maybe right after Thanksgiving or something. They should start it.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
interesting to see. Sorry, Matt, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was actually gonna agree with Jake. I think that if these players were still in conditional shape to play baseball, I think November would be perfect. It's a little bit after the World Series, like you said, around Thanksgiving time. The players would still be up for it. They wouldn't be, just pushed into the spotlight early to play baseball for World Baseball Classic. And you mentioned Edwin Diaz. It happened right before the season, and then unfortunately he's now lost for the year.
Mhm.
I think that really you got to prioritize scheduling is kind of important. And, yeah, it's very hard to compete with the NFL in regards to ratings. But like you said, this was the first time the World Baseball Classic gained notoriety, and particularly when Shohei Otani faced Mike Trout in the final at bat. And I know that baseball is not people's number one, but it's number one in a lot of people's minds because this was the America's pastime for a reason. And I think that it should be treated like that. And as far as like putting the World Baseball Classic in November, it really should. That's like the perfect day to do it. Now, the Olympics are concerned. We spoke about the Olympics for just a little bit. It's hard because I remember in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics when we had the baseball season still going on, and you had guys like Todd Frazier and Austin Wells and a couple other people who were has-beens in baseball play in the tournament, and they almost pulled off a gold medal. They won silver in the baseball tournament. But imagine having guys like Aaron Judge and Shohei and Mike Trout and other guys who play for the USA during the baseball season. Now they'd have to take some time off, and there probably have to be some repercussions for that as far as team losing games are concerned, not being a 100% good product. But there should be some sort of line to draw to make sure that the U.S. puts the best product out there for the Olympics, because it seems like the Olympics is priority number one because it's a pride thing.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think that's exactly it too with the World Baseball Classic, and why we saw it, why it's things like this are successful is because I think especially like Americans and being like, yes, like go America, everything. Let me wear American hat, American flag. Let's put it everywhere. I think there's always that element of it too, but I completely agree with what you guys think about, November time slate for something like that, especially too because it is only every 3 to 4 years. You're not having it be something where it's like you're doing this every year, you're worried about guys getting strained that way. It works out that for all the reasons you said, you can avoid those preseason injuries or give guys enough time to come back from it if that's a concern. But I do think the Olympics is a really tricky thing because again, you want to see it be successful, you want to see these guys be good, but then you have a lot of them too that are concerned about getting to a World Series, putting their team in a good spot, and even if it is, in the summer, you're winding down to that, and it'd be something where I feel like you'd have to see maybe Manfred kind of like push something in there, and maybe you'd have to like adjust the season somehow, which I don't know if I'd ever expect that to happen because you can't halt baseball. But I don't know. I think it does raise a really interesting point because what guys are you going to be putting out there on the field if they're not your top stars? Because you want to get interest, you want to show people that we have all these really talented Americans who play baseball, but are you going to really be able to get guys away from their team? Are you going to have managers be okay with that? It raises a lot of concerns, a lot of problems.
Well, and from my perspective as a Canadian, they're like the bottom end of that roster. It is a real struggle to put any sort of professional talent on there. I mean, not this past classic, but the one before that, Eric Gagne was on the team, and he was retired for like a couple of years, from the major leagues. And there were a lot of minor leaguers on the Canadian roster. You mentioned Lily about the apparel from the World Baseball Classic. I got to tell you, that white USA jersey is so sleek. I'm a big jersey. Oh, it's just wonderful. I mean, like that. I'm a big jersey guy, and I mean, it's such a huge conflict of interest for me as wearing a USA jersey. But that shirt is just so sleek. That being said, when Adam Jones made that catch against Machado in San Diego at Petco, I would have thought that the Classic was going to be around and that it would garner a lot more interest. And it seemed like it was the same turn of events where as it got closer and closer to the championship game, like this past season, like this past World Baseball Classic, that more and more fans were getting into it. And all corners of the globe do have a great representation of it. Yeah.
100%. That's where, again, I think it's something that it's good for baseball. Things like this are just good for baseball as a whole. And again, letting guys to like represent other teams, it raises, even just in a simple way, it brings up a lot of conversations of people going like, talking about these teams are unbeatable, this is like a ridiculous lineup, it's a ridiculous roster, and then at the same time you get to kind of watch these guys in a new light when you're looking at the baseball season, where maybe traditionally I wouldn't pay attention to a few of these guys because maybe they're not in a team I care about or want to watch, but now it opens up a new door where I'm going, hey, these actually are some like really good games. These are fun players. They're really talented. I might try to keep some tabs on him. I think it just like raises it does a lot of good for the sport. And again, they sold a lot of apparel. That always helps. And like I said, I saw my coworker wearing the like Team Puerto Rico I think that was it. No. Yeah. Hat. And I was like, I haven't thought about that in a second, but it kind of immediately made me excited again about it, even and like thinking about a lot of the effects of it. Obviously, too, I think the Cubs played the Phillies and the Brewers like and the Phillies played the Brewers in pretty short succession. And I was reminded too about Trey Turner doing so well, having these big moments. But I think it'll be interesting to see in the future, like the next Classic, if there's any changes, if they kind of figure out a better formula to just continue to improve it and make it even better for fans and for anybody else watching, because I think you have a lot of casual people like fans turning it on. I don't care about soccer, but for example too, the World Cup, I'm willing to just pop a game on. I'm willing to put it on, watch it, see what's happening, especially if it's Team USA. I'm not that invested, but at the same time, it gets exciting and it's fun to see how you're sharing something with a global community that you might not always get when you're just watching, a traditional baseball game.
Yeah, and well, at least if for the next World Baseball Classic, which I guess will be in 27, hopefully they could do something about the Team Canada jersey, because I tell you that jersey is just absolutely hideous. But I digress. But
Not your favorite.
no, no, it's not. I did purchase the Team Canada hat, and I did go to USA Venezuela in
Wow.
2009 when it was in Toronto. And I got to tell you, like the Venezuelans that came, like as soon as that first pitch was thrown, the drums were going, they were going ballistic, just the chanting, and it was amazing. Now, it didn't it was like a quarter filled,
Mhm.
which was a shame. But actually in that '09 tournament, Canada and USA played, and the US won. And apparently it was like one of the most raucous crowds for a ball game. And I mean, there's definitely something there. Uh, and there's definitely something that could be done with that Team Canada jersey. Like I said, ugh,
I
terrible.
actually liked it. I don't know
What?
how
The
that makes you
jersey?
feel any better, but I did actually like it.
Okay, that makes one of us. But
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it.
yeah. So that being said, folks, why don't we get into some Major League Baseball? And the felt like it was just yesterday where the Major League Baseball started its regular season, and a couple of weeks from now there will be starting the playoffs. And Matt, I guess with regards to the teams that we love, you and I are bitter rivals. Of course, I'm loyal to my Toronto Blue Jays, and you are a fan of the evil empire, of course, the New York Yankees. And as we are in the same division, lo and behold, the top of the penthouse is the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, Matt, like, how in the world did this happen? I mean, like, were you surprised that Baltimore is having the year that they're having?
It's funny because I have said this on a couple of shows that I do, and the Baltimore Orioles have probably one of the greatest turnarounds in the history of Major League Baseball. This was a ball club that in 2021 lost 110 games, and then they went above 500 the next year, 83 and 79. And now look at them; they're the top team in the American League, and you gotta give credit to Brandon Hyde and General Manager Mike Elias for really keeping their head down and making sure that they're giving their young core a chance to see what they could do. And what they're doing right now, you got guys like Adley Rushman, Cedric Mullins, and Gunnar Henderson, who's probably going to be Rookie of the Year this year. This was a team that was turbulent the last few years, like late Buck Showalter, early Brandon Hyde. It was a very turbulent time. They averaged 100 losses a season, and even in the 2020 season, where they played only 60 games, they were 25 and 35. If you do the math, 2.7 times 60 games, that's 162. That's still 95 losses. There's still it's still close to 100 losses. That's not really exactly what you're looking for. And I've gone to a couple of Baltimore Oriole games to see the Yankees play them, and the atmosphere was just dead for a long time. But that enthusiasm is now back, and you really got to think that maybe getting rid of guys like Trey Mancini and giving the kids a chance to play really gave Baltimore a sense of confidence that, hey, maybe we got something special here. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Like, they clinched a playoff spot with the Rays after that 4-game set over the weekend. They might be in the driver's seat to win the American League because they might be the youngest and one of the most inexperienced, but they got really good pitching, very solid hitting. Their closing pitching, their bullpen is solid. And honestly, like, you got the Rays team that collapsed after a hot start. You got teams like the Rangers and the Astros and the Mariners who are in a dogfight to win a division. And then you got the leader of the AL Central, which is probably going to be the Minnesota Twins, which is a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get. So I think Baltimore, like, they got something going. Now, if they go to the World Series, right, they're going to win? Maybe. But I love what this team's putting together. It's awesome to watch.
I mean, Lily, and Matt was alluding to it, that they are a very young team, the Orioles, and they were well represented in the past All-Star game. Austin Hayes, Batista, Yunior Cano, Rushman, but they have yet to experience playoff ball. And with all things considered, I mean, this is a very young squad. Do you think playoff experience means anything in baseball?
I think this is a it's a tough answer because I will say I think it definitely does. And I think it does mean something for any team having some guys on there who know what it's like to, you're playing in these high leverage, big games, game after game after game. Everyone matters, everyone is important, every at bat, every pitch. And I think going through, let's say too, if you're going for like a playoff run, you're planning on getting the World Series. That's obviously your end goal. If you know what it's like to get through that and go through these really high leverage initial series, going through like a divisional series, then to a championship series, and you know what it's like to be putting in that much, like, just, again, typical effort of a normal baseball game, but then also your adrenaline's at an all-time high, you're playing on a different stage. I think those moments is when that playoff experience can be really helpful. Also, just, knowing how to relax and like reset your body the right way, keep in a good spot mentally, things like that. Having experience is always going to be helpful. But I think for a team like them and just being so young, I think they have a lot of upside there in that, of course, it would be helpful. It would be really good for them to, maybe have somebody on the team who knows what it's like to get through that and give advice of saying like, hey, don't go too hot right away, or, just kind of telling them to like stay level headed, stay with it. But at the same time, they've been succeeding by just being themselves and by just being this young team who's really putting in their best effort. I don't want to say all the time, every game, but there's these guys that are just trying hard because I think they know how much is on the line being a young player and just needing to show that you can do it and that you're trying to kind of prove yourself. And they've all been doing it really well. And some of them too, I think also what's interesting about them is a lot of them don't have as much minor league experience as you might also find from other teams, because a lot of these guys get drafted, they're maybe in the minors for a year and then they bring them right up. So there's moments like that too that, could be a little bit scary for the Orioles, but it seems like they have a lot of the right things of getting hot at the right time and having good team chemistry. And they're also good players. There's just a lot of good athletes on that team. And I think there is a chance we could maybe see them get a little fatigued or deal with some of that. But I completely agree with Matt. I think they're kind of in the driver's seat right now. They're leading the pack. And for them, I think if they can continue to keep energy at a high, seem like, and just say that they want to go out and get it, it's going to be good. And like I mentioned, I've said this before in other case scenarios, and I always think it's the truth. The most important thing for a playoff run is getting hot at the right time and winning at the right time, because if it means everything. I think if you look at some of the most successful teams in like the past 3 or 4 years, a lot of it is like that Red Sox team in 2018. The Nationals in 2019 are a perfect example of just getting hot at the right time and making it work. And even though the Phillies didn't win the World Series, they did the exact same thing. They were a special team. I think it's at the end, they just got beat. But that's where I think we could see something like this happen again with the Orioles. But in a way, I think they're better than some of those other teams and have kind of shown that they have a lot going on. I think it would be helpful, maybe if there were a couple more veterans on that team, but at the same time, that also might kind of squash these young guys and not give them the chance that they need or deserve to really show off. So I think it's sort of, it's something that we're not going to know until we actually see it, which is a kind of a cop-out answer. But I think it's the truth with them. I think it's really the truth with this team. And I still think they have that bit of magic that might make it work and that might give them what they need to get over that hump and just fly through the postseason.
Well, and you're talking about maybe it might make a difference, playoff experience, maybe it won't. I mean, Minnesota, what kind of history do they have? I mean, Boston and New York, they're not going to be seeing the postseason, and other than maybe the Houston Astros, I mean, is there really a team that has that playoff pedigree? It will be exciting to see. And Jake, as Matt and Lily mentioned of who brought him there, who's going to take him there? Who do you think is key for Baltimore to have a deep run in this upcoming playoff season?
I think a big X factor is going to be John Means. They just got him back. He had a long recovery from Tommy John. He only made 1 start, went 5 innings in his first start. Obviously, didn't want to push him too far, but I think they're a piece. I think they're a piece away, Baltimore. I do. I don't have them going to the World Series. To me, it's I think Houston comes out of the American League. My reasoning is someone needs to beat them. Until I see it, I don't believe it. I just don't. But I think Baltimore's a piece away. But you look at the rotation. Kyle Bradish has been really good this year. He's got like a 3.12 ERA. The rest of the rotation is fine, but you got Dean Kremer has been decent. He's been fine this year, but he hasn't done anything special. Kyle Gibson hasn't been great. Flaherty hasn't been a good pickup. I think there might be somebody else I'm forgetting in that rotation. But if Means can get stretched out in time for the playoffs and be the guy that he's been the last couple of years before the injury, you put him at the top with Kyle Bradish, and you have Dean Kremer as your number 3. That's a really good rotation to go along with a really good lineup. What I think people are missing is that Felix Bautista might not be available for the playoffs. He's been out for a while, and he's maybe the best reliever in the American League this year. They still have a good bullpen. Yennier Cano has been phenomenal. They have Brian Baker in that bullpen. They have a lot of good arms. It's not just one guy. They still have a good bullpen, but just inexperience. I still have some questions about the rotation, and not having maybe the best reliever in the American League hurts. But like I said, I think if John Means can get stretched out and be effective, that gives the rotation a big boost to a rotation that might have a shorthanded bullpen.
Yeah, could they be a laughingstock only as recent as a couple years ago to a potential World Series favorite? Definitely seems to be that way for Baltimore. Staying with the AL East, and a definite thorn in my side as a Blue Jays fan, I'm assuming the same for Matt, is the Tampa Bay Rays. Lily, I can remember all those years ago, the second game of Tampa's franchise was not even close to being a sellout. They have played in, oh my God, why am I blanking on that? A Tropicana Field, is it? I'm assuming it's called something else now. I mean,
it's the Trop. It's the Trop.
It's still a Trop. Okay, I mean, like the stadium is just absolutely forgettable, but the team just keeps on doing it. Please explain to me how.
So the Rays are actually probably, I would say, my second favorite team in baseball.
Gross.
A lot of it, well, listen, a lot of it comes down to that it seems like the Brewers and the Rays just make a lot of trades all the time. They pick up each other's guys. There's a lot of familiarity for me with the Rays team, and that's something why, a reason why I always like them. But another part of it is, I think when I do watch their games, they do kind of tend to remind me a lot of my Brew Crew, in that they just, a lot of times, there might be mistakes made, they might not look like the best team. They might not look like the best team on paper, especially, but they just managed to win, and they just managed to keep things going, be consistent, make it to the playoffs. And I have been a staunch supporter of them, just because I think there's a lot of practices I don't like. I don't like a lot of their, major organization of not wanting to pay players and, kind of being really stingy on the cash. But it seems like there are so many things there that go right. And I think this goes for any sports any sports team. And I did mention this already. Sorry. But I think a lot of it does come down to chemistry and having this will to want to win and to kind of just show that they're worth it. And I think we've seen the Rays really, I think Matt was the one that mentioned it earlier, that they have really fallen off, in that they started off really hot, and then now they're kind of, I don't want to say middle of the line, but they haven't been as impressive. But at the same time, they've been still just doing enough. And I think this is just something too, where it just comes down to wanting to win. And it sounds easy to say that and just say, well, yeah, of course, every team wants to win. But I think they have that drive to really want to get it done. They have good pitching. They tend to always at least have some guy kind of hiding in there that can come out there and do a good job, finish off a game, eat innings, whatever. Having Glasnow back is, I think, one of the biggest contributing factors. Even if he's not doing well, having a guy in there like that is really impressive, really helpful. Randy Arozarena is a really exciting young player too, who has, I think it's died off a little bit in terms of Major League Baseball pointing at him being like, this is our guy. he's never been fully that. He was kind of that like postseason hero a couple of years ago, but he's still exciting. He's still fun. He still has this energy he brings. And even though the Trop is in a terrible location, is kind of a terrible stadium that doesn't, drive a lot of
Kind
people
of.
there. Listen, I'm not gonna say too much, but it just seems like they are still at the bare minimum doing the right things. You're not always gonna have this huge flashy middle of the season like trade deadline pickups, anything crazy going on that way, but they're making all the right subtle moves, and sometimes those little moves are more important than signing a guy to a 10-year $300 million contract. It's sometimes about just having the right guys in there, having guys who are going to get the job done. And somehow I think what they manage to do is they convince the guys, or they're doing something that's saying, hey, you know what, a lot of you here are on small deals, we're kind of doing that Moneyball type of signings. Maybe that might seem to some guys like, we're playing for a poverty franchise, we're playing for a cheap franchise, but they must be doing something that's convincing these players to say, hey, I still want to win it for these fans. I still want to win it for this team. I want to win it for my fellow players, things like that. I think just the fact that they managed to do all the little things right is always going to push them ahead. And even though Kevin Cash had that big blunder with pulling Blake Snell in that very famous postseason game, he still also is just a good manager. He gets the job done. It's something for me where I think sometimes they can seem like a total anomaly, but when you start to really look at the fine details of them and what they've done over the past 3-4 years, even longer than that, they're doing the little things right. And I think that's going to always help them.
And you mentioned that gaffe with Cash, and obviously Joe Madden had that long career with Tampa and won the World Series finally for those Chicago Cubs, and everybody was just in awe and just really admired how Joe Madden coached. And I mean, if you ask me, he barely won the World Series. I mean, he ran the bullpen into the ground in Game 7. Kyle Hendricks was it pitched Game 7 and just pulled him, and Aroldis Chapman was just completely on gas. Anyway, I'm kind of like going off topic here, but yeah, those things. I don't know. I'm still not a big believer of all those analytics. I mean, maybe the three of you are a little differently, because I'm a number of years older than you three. And all those pitchers, the starting pitchers were starting pitchers. I mean, 7-8 innings was more so the norm, and now it'd be a lot more of it would be a lot more surprising these days. And well, I mean, very quickly, I mean, like, do you guys agree? Like, do you believe in these analytics, especially when it comes to pitchers? I do apologize to put you on the spot like this, but do they have it right now with going by the statistics and pulling pitchers when they do pull pitchers these days?
I think it's really fine line. I think it's really important to look at statistics and look at like sabermetrics, a lot of the advanced stats, things like that. But I think what you see out of really good managers and successful managers is the ones that do look at those things, but also rely on feeling and are willing to say, you know what, in this moment we're going to let you go longer. And of course, like Craig Counsell, obviously I'm going to talk about my Brewers here, but he, might be taking some time off, might be leaving. We're going to see, but something that he has done as he's matured as a manager and has still stayed as successful, I would say, if not more successful, is looking at situations and going, you know what, usually I would take, let's say that the other day with the Yankees, where they're having the, no hitter that they eventually lost. I think early on in his career, if Corbin Burns was doing that and was going that far in an outing, which of course he was still at a good pitch count, something that they felt comfortable with, I think he would have yanked him in the 7th, because he would have said, this is our plan. Here's how we go into every game, because this is what the statistics show and here's what they prove. Now, as he's gotten, I think, more mature as a manager, he's willing to say, sure, it would be a smarter decision to take you out, but I can tell we need to give you another shot. You need to go back in there at least for the 8th inning. I can't promise you more than that. But I think that's what a good manager does and good teams do, is that you look at both the numbers and some of those advanced stats, but also go with your gut and go with your feeling, because if you're just looking at numbers, you're not going to succeed. I think that you could on paper, but that's not where games are won. Games are won on the field.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not saying don't use analytics. They certainly have their place, but I also think there's gonna be times where, if you need a big out and you have your ace on the mound, let's say, should you be taking them out because the numbers say, oh, when they get to a certain pitch count, you should be taken out, or some sort of matchup thing? Like, should that be? Like, for example, we used to talk about Blake Snell. I mean, I know that's the Rays style, but he was dominating. He had two base runners and five in the third. He had 70-something pitches. He had 9 strikeouts. And then Kevin Cash takes him out, and we all know what happened then. You could argue it cost them World Series. Of course, they could have ended up losing Game 7. They could have lost Game 7. Or could have lost Game 6. Maybe he goes 8 innings and both balls him in 9. We all know. But they, would have had a much easier time winning the World Series if they kept him in. So it certainly has its place. But Randy, back to your point of do I agree with the pitchers coming out earlier? I'm not saying you should just overwork your pitchers. We've seen some starting pitchers who have been heavily worked eventually have a lot of arm problems. Jacob deGrom, Corey Kluber is another one. Chris Sale is another one. That being said, every player is different. Certain guys are, your guys like Max Scherzer before he fell off this year. A guy, your Garrett Coles. Those guys, your Shohei Otanis. Those guys are guys who can constantly give you 6, 7 innings every time out there. And then they're your guys, who are more like innings eaters, the innings in the back of the rotation who are only going to give you 5 or 6 innings. So everyone's different. I really think going into every game with a plan, this guy, he's giving me 7 innings unless something goes wrong. He's giving me 5 and something goes wrong. I don't think that should be the case. If a guy,
well, Jake, sorry to interrupt here, but you were talking about arm problems and so on, and I'd be remiss to not mention, and of course you are definitely well aware of, how many more Tommy John surgeries are we talking about here?
Yeah.
From Greg Maddux and Tom Clavin, and you could think about all the Tommy John surgeries that took place in the 80s and 90s. It's happening so much more now, and I am a believer of sports science. Forgive me, I do think that there is value to when Kawhi Leonard did load management for the Toronto Raptors. It got him the championship. And, if they had load management way back when in the 60s and 70s, could Bobby Orr have had a longer career? I don't know. None of us know. But I mean, it just seems that, and then I was talking about in the beginning, that if you have an elbow or an arm problem with a pitcher, I'm putting money on the fact that they're going to be shut down for months.
Yeah, with the Tommy Johns, I actually have an interesting take here. I think people always put it on, they overused them. I don't think that's always the case. I think actually when you pull these pitchers after a little bit shorter than they should go, I think that actually hurts them in a way, because if you got these guys who they're trained to just go out there and throw every 5th day, throw 100 pitches, give you 6, 7 innings, and you're pulling them after 5 innings and 80 pitches a lot, I think that actually hurts them in a way. So that's kind of what I disagree with, why pitchers are being pulled so early. Also, that taxes your bullpen a lot. And if you want to win a World Series, well, you need a bullpen. I think that's actually, I'm not sure if Matt will agree with this or not, because you're a Yankee fan. I'm going to mention the Yankees. One of the reasons I think Aaron Boone is a terrible manager, because in the first half of the season, he overworks his bullpen. He runs his bullpen into the ground. He pulls starting pitches so early, and then he wonders, wait, why is my entire bullpen hurt? Because you made them go 4 innings every single day for the first 90 games of the season. So I really think you should try to get the most out of your starting pitchers as possible. I really do. So I think pulling these guys early might actually pop a little bit, be leading to some of these. So I think that's actually part of the problem.
All right, I feel like I gotta say something about that. First off, no other manager in Major League Baseball is worse than Aaron Boone with analytics. That's all. That's the number one thing I'm gonna say about that. That's number one. Number two, the whole go with your gut philosophy is really how you should be. Listen, I'm a big mathematics guy. I'm all about data and analytics and statistics. I'm all about that. But I agree, you got to go with your gut sometimes, and you got to go with the matchup that favors you. But if you just completely put your head with numbers and not go with what's in your heart, it's going to kill you. And Aaron Boone, time after time after time again, has just gone straight to the numbers. It's not been based on, okay, I believe that this pitch is going. It's not. It's never been like, okay, Michael King's going to give me a solid 2 innings. It's going to be, okay, Michael King's going to give me 1 inning because I know he's good at that. It's most, and then when Clay Holmes comes in, well, here's how bad Aaron Boone is. We don't have a definitive closer. So he'll go with a matchup based on the next 3 batters coming up because he wants to go with the pitcher that can get through those 3 batters based on their batting average and what they hit, what their best pitches are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. So that's really the problem with a guy like Aaron Boone. Then there are other managers who are just smarter, who will just say, screw this. I like what this is telling me. I'm going to go with it, but also I trust my players. When you're giving a guy 5 or 4 innings per outing and you tax your bullpen the way Aaron Boone does, it just makes you scratch your head like, what's he doing? And I know we're going to get into the Yankees for a second. I'm trying not to go on a rant here because I got that later on, I'm assuming. But like, you gotta be able to be smarter. There's a phrase that my father tells me: work smarter, not harder. And that's what some of these managers got to do. Work smarter, not harder.
Definitely words to live by. I mean, Lily, have you ever seen a Yankee fan and a Met fan agree with each other? I mean, like, this is wild.
Pretty seldom. Unless I feel like the only other time I've seen that happen is if both teams are doing terribly, and that's something where they can go like, hey, at least we're both in this situation. Yeah, but it's pretty crazy when you can get them on the same page.
Well, you know what? That's what we do here at What's Up the Sports podcast. I mean, like, it's all love. It's all love here. That's what I try to emulate here. But, very quickly before we get off the Rays, and I mentioned about how they struggle so much, and the fan support, at least in the stadium, is quite poor. In my neck of the woods, there has been talk of potentially the Tampa Rays, maybe even moving to Montreal. I mean, I think that's very romantic. I mean, but I don't think it's really feasible. I mean, the Olympic Stadium is still the main stadium for the city of Montreal, and a new stadium would have to be built closer to downtown, which the Big O isn't. I mean, Maddie, yeah, sure, the Rays have been there 30 years and they have a great program, but the stadium is what it is, and it doesn't really seem like that Tampa is really inclined to build a new park. Do you think that we could see, like the Oakland Athletics, Tampa hitting the road?
Well, it's funny because I actually saw a report from ESPN that the Tampa Bay Rays are indeed building a new stadium. It's going to be officially announced tomorrow. The stadium's going to be a $1.2 billion stadium. It's going to come to Tampa in 2028 in St. Petersburg. So that's where the situation is right now.
I'm sorry, is that official or?
Yeah,
that's official.
That was announced earlier today. Yeah.
Your kid, okay. Please, Maddie,
Tampa Bay Times.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, that's what happens when you watch sports here in Canada. Like, we're still talking about hockey too much. So this is all Japanese. This is all foreign. Educate me, Maddie.
Yeah. So to continue on, before the report came out, I was thinking that this was going to be the end of the road for the Rays in Tampa because the relationship between the fans and the team is just so sour. I mean, fans don't go to the games. Tropicana is what it is, like you said before. The team does great. They almost won a World Series. On 2 occasions, they almost won a World Series. And the fans just don't come in. I mean, this season with Randy Land, that was the first time the Rays were actually relevant and actually had some type of, or close to a sellout with Randy Land on Friday night from Tampa. But I don't know what could be like. It's a 30,000 seat venue, $1.2 billion. We gotta wait 5 years for this. I mean, is that really going to do anything to repair the relationship? Are fans going to come to St. Petersburg and attend the games? And are the Rays going to be good by then? I mean, there's just a lot of things up in the air. And unfortunately, like I said before, you got to wait 5 years. It's just a rough relationship. And I really hope that things get better because the Rays deserve much better from their fans and they deserve much better from the state of Florida than they've unfortunately gotten.
Well, it's funny because and I think Lily could attest to, and I forgive me because I don't know if you were too young to remember County Stadium to Miller Park, but it was I mean County Stadium to Miller Park was a lot similar to Exhibition Stadium here in Toronto to now Rogers Center today, because Exhibition Stadium, it was an absolute dump. Please Google it and have a puke bucket nearby. It was disgusting. But they had this architectural marvel with a retractable roof stadium. Of course, this was 1989, and this was so foreign, especially in major league parks. And I remember County Stadium, and I mean it wasn't really something to it was a rather bare bones barn.
You didn't write home about it.
Yeah. I mean, it did seem, Lily. I mean, yeah, sure, Milwaukee did have some lean years since moving to Miller Park. Things are a little bit different these days, but it did seem that it did rejuvenate Brewers fans because it sure like a new park really did help Blue Jays fans in my city.
Yeah, so I was, I think, like just born, I think, around when they constructed it. So I don't have memories of County Stadium, but you'll always talk to people who do. And I think a big part of it is it did feel like it was an older era of the Brewers, especially as a really young team. I think you're going to kind of get that feeling of still, searching for an identity, wanting to try to find that, see what it could be, who you are. County Stadium also had Packer games there. That was also the home of the Braves at one point. So, the thing about Miller Park, what that really did, or American Family Field, if you will, it brought this identity that this is just the Brewers and this is the Brewers' home. And I think it did kind of bring in this sort of new feeling for the team. The thing is, they didn't really start doing really well or have a couple of their really good years until about 8 years after it was built. So, there was still definitely something there where fans were probably waiting for something more to happen. And at the same time, I think something that maybe would be a little bit different than if they did build a new stadium for the Rays is that a lot of Brewers fans and a lot of people from Milwaukee had some sour feelings about it because of the whole taxing on the surrounding counties and areas around the field, where that doesn't seem like it's probably going to be a problem for Tampa. The thing for me with Tampa, where I think they really have the opportunity to make amends with the fans and make it better, is it not being in St. Pete's. I think this is the thing that everybody has talked about. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people have, where, like, again, the Trop is not great, but a lot of the problems for it is that people have said it's inaccessible, it's hard to get to, it's not in a good location. It's not that people don't want to go to games or anything like that. It's that it's in a really difficult area for them to go to get to. They're going like an hour out of the way. It's not something where you want to spend all that time, just going to one game. Like, if it's a lot easier to get to, if it's around things in like downtown Tampa, you're going to be a lot more willing to go check it out, see what's happening. I think that's something too we'll probably get into it a little bit too about the fate of American Family Field, what's going on there. But even there's not that much around it, but it doesn't take that long to get to the city. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to drive into downtown Milwaukee from American Family Field. Tampa, for the Trop, it's a lot harder to get all the way to downtown Tampa. So I think it's a great idea to build a really fantastic new stadium, have a great place for them to play for years to come. But at the same time, if you're going to pick another terrible location, what good are you doing then? I don't know. That's where kind of, I think, a lot of my feelings lie.
Yeah, I kind of agree. My dad lives in Tampa. He's lived there for 3 years. He went down like right when I went to college, and I started my senior year about 3 or 4 weeks ago. and the stadium. There's so much around that he's close to that. That's cool. I believe the Yankees, like maybe their spring training facility, I think, is down there. It's very close to his house. The University of Tampa, the school where he actually went to college, is very close to where he lives. There's a lot around him. You know, downtown Tampa is not far from him. We have never passed the stadium, and I've driven around Tampa with him a lot because I've been going down there, you know, for the holidays for 3 or 4 years now. Not once have we even sniffed going there. Like you guys mentioned, it's not in a good location. You know, it's just out of the way. Like it's one thing like if like the Mets play in New York City, like all right, you know, you're expected to, for me living in Long Island, you have to drive into the city. Like that's something that's expected. But people that live in Tampa and they hear, you know, the stadiums in Tampa, you know, they're thinking, oh, this is probably right down the street, and it's not. It's so out of the way. It's not convenient at all. And, you know, it's a shame because the Rays have been one of the best teams in the league for probably 5 or 6 years now. I know we already alluded to that, and their attendance rates, I don't have them in front of me, but they're just by observing, they're not good. And it's really a shame. So, you know, they're going to be playing in St. Pete. That's basically a puddle jump. My dad drives to St. Pete all the time. It's not far. Like I said, it's basically just going like this. So it's not. I don't know how much it's gonna do.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I hope for their sake it works, but I just don't know.
yeah, but I think that it does make a difference, especially you're thinking about 81 games a year. You're thinking, I mean, playoffs. Yeah, sure, there's a lot more excitement and juice to want to get into a playoff baseball sporting event, period. But you know, when you're in the dog days of summer and you're indoors and the Rays are playing, you know, Kansas City or a team that you don't really have much of a relationship with, then you know, there may not be that desire. Like for my perspective around here, you know, I'm nowhere close to Ottawa, but where the Senators play, it's like 45 minutes outside of downtown. And yeah, no, I mean, hey, obviously hockey is the ultimate sport in my country, and they have a hard time selling out. So I think it definitely does make a difference. It'll be interesting to see. Interesting to see. I mean, Lily, of course, we were talking about the Brewers there, and they have a comfortable lead. It's just a matter of time before they clinch the Central.
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, do they with regards to the postseason, how confident are you?
I think so. I've been watching. I mentioned earlier before the call, I do work for the Cubs network, Marquee Sports Network, and I do watch a lot of Cubs baseball. I've been watching, I think, a lot of games that I wouldn't have paid attention to otherwise. And I'm seeing too a lot of the National League. Brewers also just are going to be playing the Marlins again soon. Just played the Marlins. Cubs just played the Diamondbacks, and I think I've been getting a chance to kind of see a lot of these games and pay more attention to them, see what the chances are looking like. For the Brewers, their magic number is down to 7, which is really exciting. And somebody did point out too that even though, you know, it still seems like that's a long way to go, someone pointed out the records that even if they have a pretty abysmal record coming up, the chances of them clinching at least the NL Central is really high still. So they're still in a good spot. But I think they're a team that isn't perfect. I think there's a lot there that hasn't necessarily been going right. I complained a lot about when they lost to the Yankees in that, you know, having a no-hitter going through 10 innings and then losing that is brutal. I think that's a huge confidence. You know, it's really going to take away for your confidence, everything you've had going on. But ever since then, and even right before that, they were going in and competing and winning games. And I think they have the right rookies up right now. I think they have a lot of the right pieces in. Their pitchers have all been peaking right now. Freddie Peralta's been phenomenal. Corbin Burns has been phenomenal. Brandon Woodruff is back and has been absolutely crushing it. Had that complete game shutout the other day. And I think what I've noticed about them, let's say compared to the Diamondbacks, I think the Brewers seem like a lot more of a complete team. and just seem to have a lot of the right pieces going together where when I was watching the Diamondbacks play, I was confused the entire time. I didn't understand how they had been winning games like they had been, other than maybe, again, like Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly. A lot of it seemed like they were coming down to lucky situations. And I think, too, a lot of luck, a lot of baseball, and a lot of success in baseball does come down to luck. That's always going to be something that drives you. It's those intangible things. And I think the Brewers have had a lot of that, too. They've won a lot of one run games, things like that. But at the same time, when I'm watching them, it just seems like they have a lot more cool. It seems like they have a lot more figured out. Mark Canha was a phenomenal pickup for them, and he's been doing a great job. Even Carlos Santana hasn't been the most consistent, but he's been really picking up and doing a great job when he can. There's rumors that Garrett Mitchell might be coming back for the postseason, and he is such a spark plug for that team. Sal Frelick, bringing him up was a great option. He's a contact hitter. He always just does what he can to get on base and plays with a level of poise and professionalism that you just want and expect out of a kid. And I think just looking at them, it just seems like they're fairly put together, and especially how they've been over the last maybe 15 games, it seems like they've really elevated that. A lot of it has to do with Craig Counsell. I think the way he manages a team, he owns up to his mistakes, but also tends to do a lot of things right. To me, I don't know if this is a World Series year, but what they've done is they've been consistent the whole season. They had a tough losing streak in the middle of the year, but other than that, it's been pretty consistent. A couple of losses here and there, winning your series is getting through it. They were swept by the Dodgers, but after that have just been lights out. So I don't necessarily know how far I expect them to go, but I think they're in a good spot to finish off the season. The Cardinals might be trying to play spoiler ball here, which is a little scary with the amount. I think the Brewers faced them 7 times over the last couple of games or so, last few weeks of baseball in the regular season. But I like their chances. I think if they can stay hot through the end of out of the season, they're going to be in a good spot. Facing the Braves and the Dodgers might be an impossible task once they really get into it. But I think if they can have that sort of scrappiness level of Brewers magic and just find a way to win, that's going to really help them. But I'm going to say I really can't be too confident, but I do like how they appear compared to some other teams that they are going to be likely to face. It's just that the juggernauts right now in the NL are going to make it really hard. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens, but I do like their odds. I would like to see them do well in the postseason too, just to hopefully solidify, the government and officials wanting to pay for the stadium upgrades and make sure that they do indeed stay in Milwaukee. But I'm ready for some postseason baseball. American Family Field, I haven't been to a postseason game. But if you ever see videos, if you see game footage there, it is packed. It is packed. Everyone is excited. People really love their Brewers, and they love their Brewers doing well. So we'll see what happens. But I think that they've really ironed out a lot of the kinks and have a good shot to at least fight for a decent playoff run. I'll say that. I'll say decent. That's where I'm going to leave it.
Well, and I mean, obviously, Atlanta is having such an incredible year, and the Dodgers did win the World Series, albeit in the COVID year. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit jaded and skewed because Atlanta did have that incredible run in the 90s where they kept on making World Series, and they only ended up with one. And then, of course, I mean, this current recent World Series a couple years ago aside. And then Clayton Kershaw, I mean, I think he still has that label of being a flop. And what kind of Dodgers team are you going to get? I mean, like you had mentioned yourself, Lily, that all of those teams that came out of nowhere got hot at the right time. I'm thinking of the St. Louis Cardinals when they won in 2011, and they were I think they were barely above 500, and they beat Texas in that incredible comeback with David Freese. But Yeah, I mean, hey, you get a ticket to the show, and anything is possible.
You gotta
But
make it count.
yeah, definitely. I mean, Maddie, with all due respect, I mean, one team who's probably not going to make it to the show is the New York Yankees, and Maddie, I got love for you, my man, but I mean, it is one of those years, and I mean, you are the first one to admit it, along with the Boston Red Sox. I mean, this is something that we don't really see too often. Boston and New York at the bottom of the AL East. I mean, that being said, there are Boston and the New York Yankees. I mean, do you think that this kind of futility will last for years on end?
Well, the Red Sox already started by firing their chief baseball officer, Shane Bloom. They just did that. So the 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 reels are already starting to fall off. I think Alex Cora will be next if the Red Sox don't turn around next year. And then as for the Yankees, I'm just
Yeah.
but first off, I do want to say, Randy, that our teams are going to be playing each other 6 of the final 12 games. So there's that. And then I'm going to say this. I think Jake said this one time, and I completely agree with him on the Discord for Colorcast. If the Yankees end up having a losing season, all of Major League Baseball is going to be thrown apart because the Yankees have not had a losing season since 1992. And it's been 31 years. And every time the Yankees get something positive going, something seems to go wrong. Domingo Germán has a perfect game out of Major League Baseball because of something bad that happened outside the field. Jason Dominguez, 4 home runs in his first 7 games, gets injured. It just seems like Josh Donaldson's inconsistencies, Stanton's inconsistencies, Aaron Judge's injury in June. It just seems like one thing after another. The wheels just keep coming off. And then we had to rely on guys like Billy McKinney and Jake Bowers, who, by the way, you can't get a Jake Bowers autograph without paying $300. It's just gotten to the point where it's just like, why? And I'm
Sorry.
serious.
So, again, Canadian sports consumer. Can you sort of clarify? Well, hey,
So,
what?
so let me just explain what happened. So I went to a Jake Bowers event near where I am in New Jersey, and he
Ah,
was there. And they were charging you, I think, $300 for to get his autograph. And that was the one thing. Yeah, I know it's a head scratcher. But anyway, just the amount of stuff that's gone on with the Yankees. I'm trying to be professional here. It's just been one of those things where it's just like it's disappointing because this was a team that started 56-20 last season in the first half of last season, and then all of a sudden the wheels just came off midway through last season, and then the playoffs they got swept by the Astros in the ALCS, and then on top of that they come into the new era. Garrett Cole gets hot, and boom, like things just come off. Like every time you think something good's gonna happen, they just hit you with something that's unexpected, or they hit you with something that's bad. And getting rid of Josh Donaldson for all intents and purposes, that was the best thing that they could have done. They gave the kids a chance to play. I do like what Anthony Volpe did bring in his rookie season. I think he's going to be a player to keep an eye on for the foreseeable future. I really hope that he does improve as time goes on. I actually got to meet him. He's actually a really good kid, Anthony Volpe. My cousin got to play with a relative of his, and I got to meet Anthony. He's a really good guy, and I'm
right on.
hoping that he continues to progress. He had 2020 season this year, 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases. He started off hot. Things just kind of cooled off a little bit. But again, like there's a bunch of questions going on. Like, do you fire Aaron Boone? Do you fire Brian Cashman? Because of what they did the trade deadline was just head scratching. You get Kenyon Middleton and you don't really improve your offense. It's just a lot. And as far as that goes, like it's just very, very it's just very, very head scratching how a team that started 56-20 last year just flopped. And the Boston Red Sox are concerned. I would say that the downfall of this whole Boston Red Sox team was when they got rid of Mookie Betts. Because when Mookie Betts left, the offense, for the most part, left with him. And they tried to replace it with Trevor Story. Trevor Story hasn't really been a positive point. Rafael Devers is good, and they got a couple of guys that are trying. Like Jeter Downs beat us one game last year. Like they have some good pieces in Boston, but when you get rid of your chief baseball officer and your manager is under hot water heading into next season, you got to figure that maybe the wheels are starting to come off in Boston. And this is the iconic rivalry, Brady, that we've talked about before. And then we're not going to be seeing them in the playoffs. So it's, I don't know, moves have to be made on both ends.
You know what? I still believe. I think this is a situation where I can hold my breath because it's the Yankees and the Red Sox. I mean, these two franchises print money, and I just have every reason to think that they are going to do something and turn it around. I mean, I don't know. You three could educate me better in terms of their farm system. I mean, but I mean, yeah. Hey, let's call it right. I mean, between Boston and New York, could we see a Shohei Otani land at one of those two teams? I mean, who knows, right? So,
I mean, I think too, you have the Yankees are very reminiscent this year too of what the Cardinals have been doing. The same thing where you have a good team on paper, there's a lot of things going right, and for some reason, and the thing is too, I think this could happen for the Yankees just in the same way it happens to the Cardinals. You might just have one bad year that doesn't really make sense, and of course, if you do look at it, it does make sense, but it really might just be a one-off thing that you kind of have to scratch your head and go, I guess so. Okay. Like do better, find your ways to do better, but another total anomaly there. But where Shohei lands is going to be absolutely compelling because I have no idea. Of course, it's probably going to come down to just who's willing to pay the most money, but also for a guy like that, anybody really could be willing to pay the most money. And I think that's what's kind of not scary, but you want to think it's going to be somebody like the Yankees or the Dodgers, which of course like would probably be best case scenario for baseball, but you never know if all of a sudden somebody random just goes all the chips in, say
sure.
We're just going to do it just to get him. Hopefully he goes to an actual contender so that we don't see this happen again where we go, why are we wasting the talents of the best baseball player on the planet or two of the best baseball players on the planet? But I feel like there's a huge chance that we might also just see it happen where someone random goes, yeah, why not? Let's pay the kid.
Yeah, where Otani goes, like you said, Louie, it's a mystery when you have a player of the caliber as him. The whole league is obviously going to want him, but only some teams make sense. Only some teams are willing to pony up for him. The favorite is the Dodgers. If you ask most executives, that's what they think. I could definitely see it. I would love if he was on the Mets. I don't think it's going to happen. I do think they'll sniff around. I have a hard time believing that the richest owner in baseball, Steve Cohen, who loves spending money, when the biggest free agent maybe ever is available. I have a hard time believing he's not going to take a look, but I just don't see it happening just based off the state of our team. If their season went as planned, I would have been much more confident. In fact, heading into the season, I thought he was actually going to be on the Mets, but basically by the All-Star break, I was like, yeah, don't think it's going to happen. Don't be surprised if he signs with the Seattle Mariners, though. I actually think that's where we could end up. First of all, you have Ichiro Suzuki is another former Japanese star, going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. Of course, had an amazing career there. So you have the connection there. And there's been a lot of international guys have had success over there. Julio Rodriguez is probably the star of their team over there. Yusei Kikuchi didn't really have a ton of success there, but Seattle was able to grab him. I forgot exactly where he's from. I'm not sure if he's the same nationality as
you see Kikuchi being the Jays.
Yeah, he was in Seattle first, so they were able to
he was in Seattle for. Yeah, I was.
He didn't quite work out for them, obviously. And I do not believe he's Japanese. He may be from actually Korea, actually. I forget.
He is Japanese.
I think he's Japanese.
No,
he is Japanese. Okay,
yeah.
so so you got the connection there. Now that's a team. They're really young. Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs for 21 years. They missed the playoffs consecutive years as many years as I've been on this planet. And then finally they broke through last year, making the playoffs. They even won a series. They should get in this year. Obviously, that division is a dogfight. I think they'll at least sneak in the wild card. But they're having a promising year. Really young, like I said. And I think they're a team that I could see being like, okay, we have a really good young core. Now it's time to make that one big move and take us over the top. And I think if they were to sign Otani, I'd probably pick them to win the World Series next year. And I think it's very possible. It's something that people aren't really talking about. They're talking about New York, talking about the Dodgers. But I think actually that is my prediction. Just please God, Otani, don't resign with the Angels. Please don't do that.
Well,
He deserves better.
yeah, Jake, I was going to ask if because Steve Cohen obviously is not too shy with the with spending the dough, and is there a possibility of him landing in New York? I mean, with geography being what it is, I mean, does playing on the West Coast make a difference at all? I mean, like, Shohei's going to get paid, and he could probably buy a supersonic jet to get to Japan in like half the time of a regular bird. So I mean it would be I don't know. I mean I'm thinking that it's going to be West Coast. I mean I think the experience in with the Angels has come and gone along with Mike Trout. I mean how long is he going to be there? But obviously
Hopefully, maybe not longer, maybe not much
mm-hmm,
longer.
absolutely. Listen, guys, this has been just an absolute blast. I mean, the knowledge that you three have is just, it goes without saying. And now I want to put you three to the test. So what I have drawn up is an homage to Sports Geniuses, the Fox Sports game show, which, as we discussed in the beginning, the three of you don't remember. So it was before your time, which makes me feel kind of crummy, but whatever, that's another story. So essentially what we are going to do is I am going to pose a couple of baseball related statements, and two of you are going to go back and forth until one person gets stumped. So as the example was before we went to air, numbers between 10 and 20. Person A will say 13, person B will say 16, and after say 3 to 5 seconds, 3 seconds, if you can't come up with a name, you will get a strike. So each of you are going to play against each other. Okay, we are going to start with Matt and Lily. Okay, so what we first statement is American League most valuable players since 2000. You are going to give me an American League MVP, the winner of the AL MVP from 2000 onward. Repeat winners are only counted once, so do not repeat the multiple winners of the AL MVP. Lily is before Matt in terms of alphabetically. 3 seconds, and it starts with you.
Mike Trout.
Correct. Matt?
Shohei Otani.
Correct.
This is already off to a bad start.
Okay. Tom.
I
So yeah, there's a couple
I'm
of
on the
names.
spot. I'm scared of there.
Yeah,
I
between
said this would be embarrassing for me. I'm like, for some reason, I'm just blanking on everyone. Oh my god.
So yeah, between Aaron Judge, Dustin Pedroia, Ichiro, Josh Donaldson, there was a couple of
Aaron Judge was my when I'm like he won one, and then I was like, no.
Okay, so we are going to, so Matt did have two, so that was a strike for Lily. We are now going to go to Matt and Jake, and I am going to ask you All-Star Game MVPs since 2000. Since the year 2000, please tell me the winner of the Midsummer Classics showcase game. Repeat winners only count as once. Jake is before Matt. Jake, first to you.
Elias Diaz.
Correct. Matt?
Giancarlo Stanton.
Correct. Jake?
I'll take a guess and say Aaron Judge.
Nope. That is Aaron Judge was not All-Star Game MVP. So going down the list here, we had Alex Bregman, we had Mariano Rivera, Michael Young, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Shane Bieber. There was definitely a few out there. Okay. So that was a strike for Jake. So this works out perfectly. So the winner of between Lily and Jake will meet Matt in the finals. So this question will be, since of course the year 2000, National League Cy Young Award winners. Repeat, of course, as you know, will not count. There, if I'm not mistaken, seeing my number, there are 17 winners. Give me a second here. 3, 6, 9, 12. 17 appears to be winners of the NL Cy Young Award since the year 2000. Jake, we'll start with you.
Jacob deGrom.
Correct. Lily.
Corbin Burns.
Correct.
Max Scherzer.
Correct.
Sandy Alcantara.
Correct.
Clayton Kershaw.
Correct.
Oh man. This might be it for me. I'm blanking.
Okay, Lily, thank you.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, it was well, near and dear to my heart is Roy Halladay.
Oh my god.
Clemens won in 2004. Looks like the first since 2000 was Randy Johnson. From there it was
oh my god.
Brandon Webb, Chris Carpenter, Tim Lincecum.
Is Zach Greinke on that list?
Zach Greinke is not on the NL list.
He won AL, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
it looks like
thank God that Lily got that wrong, because I was gonna say Zach Greinke.
Oh my god. Lincecum. Sorry, there's a
wow.
It's one of those things where I'm too used to saying like Randy
freak.
Johnson. I'm like, he won a. It's so crazy to think. I'm like, he won a Cy Young in 2000. All right, feels like it's of another time. Yeah, but let me be honest. Your trivia like that, not my strong suit.
It's not. Okay,
I'm
a little surprised.
I'll find I have like my niche categories. I'll remember things like all of a sudden where somebody's like RBI leaders. I'm like from like 2 years ago. I might be able to things like that. I can usually scrap it out, but sometimes those big ones I'm like,
okay. No, you know what? I mean, I when I was a kid, especially, like I was like a sports encyclopedia. And now these days, I mean, hey, I'm in my mid 40s, so what do you want from me, right? Like I have to get up every now and then in the middle of the night to go to the washroom. I mean, like you three will get to that point. I mean, like it's going to be 20 years, but whatever. I mean, like I get it. I'm the elder statesman amongst the four. I've learned to accept that. But so we are off to the championship round, and it is between Jake and Matt. Best of luck to the both of you. I am going to ask you players from the 2019 World Series roster for the Washington Nationals. Washington Nationals World Series roster. They, of course, won it in 2019. Seems like a long time ago. But Jake is before Matt. Jake, first one to you.
Steven Strasburg.
Correct.
Howie Kendrick.
Correct.
Max Scherzer.
Correct.
Trey Turner.
Correct.
Patrick Corbin.
Correct.
Juan Soto.
Correct.
Sean Doolittle.
Correct. And Matt, I think we're going to have to cap it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna have to cap it. Yeah,
That is
between
a tough one.
The Mets play them 25 times a year. I had a little advantage there.
Oh my god, some of these names.
The Mets played that team. That team gave the Mets fits. That I saw them a lot that year.
yeah, Lily looks like she's seeing the roster there. Yeah,
I'm
Annabelle
looking up.
Sanchez, Anthony
Daniel
Rendon.
Daniel Hudson, Rendon, Kurt Suzuki,
Rendon.
Adam
Anibal,
Eaton,
Anibal Sanchez.
Robles,
Wow.
Jan Gomes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jan Gomes. He
current Chicago Cub.
mhm.
Well, Jake, tip of the cap to you.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
No, no, the pleasure was mine. I mean, like, yeah, Sports Geniuses. I think you might be able to find a YouTube video, and yeah, the final round I thought was really, really cool. And I mean, of course, we knew a lot of casters from Colorcast, and they were trying to do some sort of sports trivia game and so on. I thought this was a really great concept, and you guys, no, you guys definitely brought it for sure.
I have to say, I'm going to be sitting and thinking about how I didn't guess Aaron Judge or even A-Rod. A-Rod, you know,
A-Rod
like,
would have been a good one.
there's a few of those there that I'm going to be sitting and thinking about for a while, wondering why I decided to shut down in that moment and go, I know nobody. But you know, we're gonna let it slide. Not even dropping in a Verlander. You know, there's a few there that I'm gonna think about for a while.
That's gonna haunt you. Is that fair to say, Lily? I mean,
It's gonna be. Listen, if I ever come back around and there's a similar situation, I'm gonna be making sure I am up on my game. I'm gonna be practicing.
Well, I really do hope that will be the case. You know, this was just an absolute blast. You know, talking baseball and the three of you making some time to come on this. You know, the knowledge that you three have is just incredible. You know, really appreciate the three of you. And if we do it again soon, I'll be sure to come up with another trivia challenge if you guys are down.
Oh,
I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
Perfect. For Jake Cardinale, Lily Schumacher, and Matt Siriani, I am Randy Kure. This is What's Up the Sports podcast. Find me on Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called, at What's Up Podcast. You could also find on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you are doing well and keeping safe. We will talk to you next time.